Greetings, Nerfaholics. Okay, so as you know, I've put the covers in. Now I wanted to put in a laser sight, and I was going to put it in here, and I was going to shine through this original Ultra 2 barrel. I was going to run it down here, so I spent all this time cleaning out the inside of this and cutting a slot and everything in both sides. Didn't work because there's no way to really activate it with your pinky. So what I've done, I've put it in this side here. Just cut out a height thing there. It's not finished yet. What I've got to do is probably this bit, which is black on the inside, is extend it down to fill that void, so it just holds it into place and I don't have to worry about screwing or gluing or anything. So I'll just print another one of them and put it in place and it should be good. So 30, 15, 25 and just join it and just have a lump of plastic there to hold it in place. So what I can do, if I can find one, is get a white light torch and just put it in there above it. Been having trouble finding one of a suitable shape or even just the emitter with the LED, simply because I just haven't seen one. If I can find one, great, I'll use it. If I can't, not a problem. Morning, fellow Nerf sufferers. Andy work back again for another fun-filled day of frustration. Now, it's time to put the hoses in this thing. Now I've got, from memory, I've got the red dot sorted, so that's good. So I'm going to pull this apart and start fitting hoses in here. And I found a selection of hoses, and this is one of the old things. This is a rack guard for an oven from Aldi. You put it over the end of the rack guard of your oven rack so you don't burn your hand, but it's a great little bit of corrugated pipe. There's an old thing from a flick mixer tap, so I'll have to use the angle grinder to cut that. Old hose pipe from my car, something. A few other bits and pieces I've got here, so I'm just going to cut and fit as many of those as I can fit into space. As you can see, I've got the laser sight there, so I've got to work around on this side, so I'll be just in this area, but it'll just be enough to fill up the area and make it look cool. So let's get on with it. As you can see, this is really stiff pipe and it's going to cause a lot of tension and now to make things, putting things together, really difficult. But the thing is, it's not seen very well, so I can put a cut in the back of that so it'll just bend a bit better. So what I'll do is I'll just cut a bit off that I want. That goes in there. And that could just go just like that, just jam it in. Grind a little bit of that out so it's got a place to sit. Now most of this stuff will just be friction fit. It'll just sit there happily. There we go. See, what I'll have to do is probably attach something like a zip click pan jute tie to that somewhere, just so it doesn't want to go anywhere. It's pretty good like it is. Now from the other side you can just barely see it, but it does take up some space and there's room underneath for another hose. Okie dokie, got my two pieces of pipe in. Haven't bothered to trim any of the pan jute ties or anything because this is just a test fit. Rough bit of tape there just to hold that in place while I place this one on top. And that's a nice mate there, that's a nice mate there. Good, so there we go. I think you can see it there. So I'll just strip some electrical wire and put some bundles of wire running through there. Right, is January 1, so Happy New Year all fellow Nerf afflicted. A few months ago Rainbow sent me this, one of his big shop modifications, and I don't know if you can see it, there's a lot of line there from the layers in the printing, but it's perfectly smooth because he apparently sanded the crap out of this thing. And I'd say the reason you can see some of the lines is some of the sanded powder got packed into them. It's really a really nice finish, done really well. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the same thing, but I have this secret weapon. I found this amongst all my paints when I was just cleaning up my paint area. This it's a spray putty. I think it belonged to my son. He used it on his car. And what according to the instructions in this, you have to heavily sand what you're going to do, what you're going to paint, then spray this on. So I've bitten the bullet because you know how much I love sanding stuff, and I've been doing sanding all this stuff first with 180 wet and dry, and it does make a surprising difference despite all the lines in it. This one of course is different because I printed it upside down so the lines are that way, where all the rest were printed vertically. But like this, the front end I've done, you can see it's gone white, but it's actually quite smooth, and it's also good because I can tell areas where I've missed, like it's getting a bit rough down here, but it's quite smooth up here. So I'll probably do that for a few hours, and then I'll spray the putty on, and then put the paint coats on. So I will get on with that, and probably scream and curse and shout, so I'll turn the camera off. So talk to you again soon. As some of you may be aware, my darling wife got me a 3D printer and I've been having some fun. I decided to make a scope for the plasma rifle. That's just taped together at the moment, but that's ready to go virtually. I got crystal green resin instead of the white I asked for, but hey, can't have everything. Very easy in my 3D printing program to take that profile there at the back and make a bracket that fits. It was simple. Straight. So I made two of them. We'll take the scope like so, and two straps with holes pre-drilled, and I'll have my scope. And what I also decided, I found a YouTube video of how to paint carbon fibre. And basically what it is you take your parts you're going to paint, which is going to be these brown bits, spray them gloss black, lay this stuff over it in any sort of pattern you want, and spray it with a metallic grey, and you get that sort of weaving look. I've printed these with the surface of the bed showing because I wanted that, and I'll leave that and I'll just do the black over the top of it. So those four pieces are going to get painted. Okay, so here's all my body parts that I've sanded down with the wet and dry and let them air dry. Now they've got some particles in certain places, and this one's got a couple of holes that got to be filled. But what I'm going to do is paint this one just to see how this spray putty works on it, because if it screws it up, it'll be a relatively easy process to scrape it off and sand that down again. The others are a bit too complex shape. Well, having just sprayed that and seeing how much line work just sort of raised up to the surface, I'm not too positive about how well that's going to work, but we'll see. Right, now one thing before I go ahead and paint these, I printed two of these, one for each side. That's for the other side, and that's the shape it is. The other one for this side, I needed to hold this switch in for the red dot sight, so I printed it with an extension that came down in here, and then using one of these, how's it go? Just heated the plastic gently and bent it to shape to hold the switch in place, and then two screws through in it to hold it in place. This stuff being thermal sensitive because of, you know, it's filament plastic, it gets hot, but you can work it for quite a fair amount of time. Yeah, and it's a pretty rough job, but it does the job. It holds it in place. Right, hello fellow Nerf no-lifers. Now, didn't have any epoxy putty to fill these holes in this thing, so I put some hot glue on from the inside. When that was dry, I put some Tamiya putty on the outside. I work at my local Goodwill, and when we get electronics in, we sell them, electronic things, if they're all complete. But if we get things like this, which is just a cable by itself, we have no idea what it's for, we normally just throw it in the bin. So I snagged this one, and I was thinking of using cables down here or something, but then I had a bit of a brainstorm. I printed myself these recesses. I'm going to cut a hole in there, and that's going to go down in there like that, probably minus that washer because it's too big. Yep, and through a hole in the end I'm going to cut, and I'll put that screw in, so I'll have two cables coming out of the other side of the blaster. Now, in order to facilitate getting the hole in the right place, because I really don't want to mess this up, I took this top surface out of the model and just printed it on my 3D printer, my filament printer, and I've got a recess that I can cut. I'll line it with the bottom of that line, so that's easy enough. These are great if you get them. They're called workshop markers. If you leave the cap on, they don't dry out for hours, and they can tolerate dust and dirt and muck. Right, now there's my area I've got to cut out, and because I've got this width, that width there, I can, you know, I don't have to be that precise. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just take my little Dremel, and luckily I've already got a burr on it. I'm just going to drill a hole through either end to see the limits. Now there's obviously walls sticking, stiffening walls on the inside, supports, that sort of thing. And that's not a great issue because I don't have to take too much out. It's not that deep. It's only, I think it's only a centimetre. Yeah, it's only a centimetre. And these, some of these stick up much more than that. I've got them handed so they're left and right sided, so I've got to remember which one goes on which side. Okay, alright. So another thing I'm going to do before I go any further, I should have even done before that, is drill a hole in the end of this to make sure I can get through it. Because I've done some tests with the gluing of this resin and it seems woefully brittle. So, whew, dusty. Probably time for a mask. Drum on there, but there we go. Dokily dokily. Okay, got my hole cut, pretty rough. Had to adjust that too, but that fits in really nice there. So as I said, area to fit. Now, didn't take into account the length of this and stuff, but it still goes in. I've had to drill away some plastic there, but it'll be hidden. I'm not going to pretend, oh, this is the fun of modding. I stuffed up, I made this too big and I didn't make it deep enough. But that's life. And I'm not going to print another one, I'm just going to get on with this. So that will come out there like that. I probably might even cut half that off so it fits in a bit deeper. And it'll be fixed along here. Let me just zoom out a bit. Be fixed along here with some sort of hoop metal, and it'll just zip up there and disappear under that bit. So that's like that. That's like that, and that just goes up under there. That's all I'm wanting. Now what I'm going to do now is very gently drill some holes, because I've noticed this resin seems to be extremely brittle. Drill some holes, put a couple of screws in to hold it in place, because you've got to mock up the whole thing before you pull it apart and paint it. What I've ordered a pack of 200 of these M2 screws, these tiny little things, but they've got the countersunk head, so I'll be countersinking every screw I'm putting in and replacing them, and these things are just placeholders at the moment, but I need to put it in place just to see how it goes. And the screws I've ordered are 10mm long, probably a little bit shorter than that, but because I'll be going through into that area where the pipes are, it'll probably grab some of the pipes and that'll help me a little bit, so I'm not going to cut them down willy-nilly yet. Okay, so there's my little piece put in place. I discovered something interesting. Resin doesn't like to be drilled, it tends to shatter. So luckily I had an accident with some super glue this morning. I got a whole tube with the head torn off, so I've slathered that in super glue and stuck it in. Here's one I did earlier. This one, when I tried to drill the hole, it cracked right across there. So in an effort to stop that getting any further, I'm going to try a little trick. This is just a piece of paper I had on the desktop earlier. Just going to cut a piece smaller. Okay, that's pretty good. Now what I'm doing, I'm using the side that was facing down so there's not so much dirt on it. I'm going to get my super glue that's gone everywhere and just pour it over that. Move it back and forward to the paper and just push the paper down over it. And feel the heat reaction as it is. It's already starting to glue. Now this is just basically I guess, doing the same thing as fiberglass. The fiberglass resin itself is very brittle and the glass fibre is very brittle, but you combine them together and you get a very strong product. So just gonna make sure that glue can get where it needs to and everything's down. Get rid of that bit without it sticking in the fingers. So that's just a little insurance policy on my part, just so what I'll do is I'll just jam a bit of resin in there to hold it in place, and if it should get glued there, that's not a problem. That's just a cheap, quick, lazy bodge job, but it should reinforce that crack in that plastic. And I've got super glue all over me, so that's going to be fun to sort out. Yep, keep sticking to the desktop. Okay, so that's that. Now, here's the next bit. Here's my side plates that I had done with semi-gloss black. And what I'm going to do with these guys is a carbon fibre paint job. I saw something on YouTube the other day by a guy. I'll put his name down below. It's pretty straightforward and basic, and so the first thing I did is I came out to shed and see if I could find some non-slip netting, and I can. So you put that over like that, and you just spray through it with a metallic grey on top of that, and you'll get the netting. Now, if I do it like that, it's going to look a bit odd because it's, I might do it diagonally. Yeah, or maybe line it up with that edge. That's probably an idea. Yeah. So I will cut bits of this to fit and line up, and then I'll show you how the spray goes. Okay, so I've got my little side plates here. I've cut the non-slip mat to the size I want it and placed it at the angle, and I've got some adhesive glue here, some spray adhesive. So turn it over, give it a light spray, and put it back on roughly in the same angle. Nice one. Right, let's get the camera. So I came across a video called Wayne's Workshop, and he showed me how to, I'll show you as well, how to paint carbon fibre, which I thought was pretty cool. So I had a look at his video and followed his steps, and all he does is spray paint the piece black. In this case I've spray painted mine gloss black, semi-gloss black I should say, and then you get some of this non-slip matting, and what you do to make it stick, just to hold it down, spray it with a little bit of spray adhesive, and then once it's stuck down you go over it with a gunmetal grey. I didn't have any, I had to make something out of black and aluminium, but let's see the result. Yeah, not too bad, not as wonderful as I hoped. His is a lot better because his mat is like a series of blocks stuck together, so there's a void and there's a solid block. It looks a lot more carbon fibre-ish. But this will do for me for now. Everything's a learning experience. I should have done that one at an angle. Yeah. Let's have a look at this one. Yeah. Not best, but they'll dirty up and etc. etc. So there's an option you got if you want to do carbon fibre.